What do you want?
Sounds like you're having a rough day.
Mass Effect Andromeda, 5 or so years in the making. A lot of people have been very excited to play this. We've both finally got it. And Nick, what do you think?
Hey, what's going on?
Well, I'm not in as far as you are so far. I've only really done the first sort of mission, and then I've gone to the Nexus, and I've had a little wander about the Nexus, and I'm about to go out on my first mission from there. What I've played so far, yeah, definitely I'm interested. It's got a real Mass Effect feel to it. I'm all in on these baddies that we've been exposed to so far. They look very interesting. The sort of lead guy looks a little bit like Harbinger from Mass Effect 2, but that might be just me, putting two and two together and getting like 15. But yeah, what I've played so far, I'm keen to see some more and see what the actual story develops into. But of course, you've been playing for review, so what do you think?
So yeah, I mean, like you, I was excited for it. There's been some negativity to it coming into this, which I think's been unfair to a point. The game is massive. There's plenty to do. There's this massive story which is really interesting. And this new villain called the Ket, which you mentioned earlier, which I'm not sure whether you know what they do and how they. What their story is yet, but when you kind of uncover more about them, it opens it up a lot more, and it becomes a lot more kind of a personal story for the crew. So
I mean, what's the main premise? What's the main premise of Mass Effect? Because of course this is a completely new galaxy. All of the stuff that was happening from the trilogy has, I guess, kind of happened already, because when the Andromeda Initiative set off from Milky Way galaxy, we were sort of in the timeline of the trilogy, weren't we? But of course, the 600 plus years have gone whilst they were in cryostasis to get to Andromeda. So, what is the main thrust of the story then? Is it about setting that, that initiative in place? What
it's
do you
about
do?
it's about survival for the human race. They've found this Andromeda galaxy. And they're looking for somewhere to settle and kind of create life, build, like use science, technology, build a military, just basically establish themselves once again in this new galaxy.
And of course, it's not just the humans, is it? There's been other arcs sent. From what I've learned so far, there's a Turian arc, a Solarian arc, the Krogan are there, and the Asari so far. I mean, I don't know whether any of the other races from Milky Way come.
There's one other race in the game called the Angala.
Right.
And you'll learn more about them, which I believe they're a new race because I can't remember them from the original trilogy. But yeah, you've got your familiar faces, and it's weird seeing them again after all this time, because obviously you remember the crew that you had and the people that were with you. But yes, the Solarians are there, the Krogans. There's still the kind of that underlying hatred that the Krogans of the people have got with the Krogans.
Oh, with the genophage thing.
Yeah.
That story's not been wound up, has it? Because of course,
not really.
In 3, that was tied up, depending obviously your choices, but that confrontation's still there. Is that what you're saying? We've still got this difficulty between the Krogan and the Solarians, who of course created the genophage, and the Turians who implemented it. So those tensions are still there.
There's still tensions. There's references to the tensions and stuff, and so there's a lot of that still there. And it's the way they kind of implement the history into it is excellent, and I'm not going to talk about the story, but there's certain decisions you will make that you feel the weight of, because you're the Pathfinder, the new Pathfinder to save life in general. You have to decide sometimes about saving, one particular one over the other one, or making a choice that will affect one over the other one, and you do feel it, and there are repercussions either way. So it's all about how you deal with it. But I mean, speaking of the kind of the Pathfinder, the main character, depending on who you're playing as.
I was going to
You
say,
play as
because
Scott or Sarah. And it's quite interesting because I'm reviewing as Scott at the moment.
Okay.
And then I did like a little stream as Sarah the other day.
Yeah.
And it's literally the same story.
Of course.
Except you're one or the other. But there are little kind of things that separate them slightly. Only little kind of lines of dialogue and stuff. So they are pretty much the same story. But Sarah does seem to be a bit more kind of warming than Scott. I mean, all I see, because I didn't create characters, I just go in as who they look like.
As the defaults,
And to me, Scott, I can't get out of my head, he looks like Mark from Westlife. So, that's who I see. Regardless, like he's cool. He's very kind of generic, but there are moments of dialogue. There's something he says which made me howl, and I wasn't expecting it. And it's just, he is quite a humorous character when you're not expecting it. So don't rule him out. If people are thinking, oh, he looks a bit boring, he does have his moments. But then
is it a bit like, I mean, with the trilogy, of course, Femshep with the fantastic voice acting by Jennifer Hale became the sort of default shepherd, didn't she?
Yeah.
But I've done several playthroughs using the male shepherd as well, and I kind of grew to like him, but he was always a bit goofier than Jennifer Hale's shepherd. And so far, I mean, I haven't played as a male rider. I've been, playing as Sarah. And initially I was a bit like, oh, she's not Jennifer Hale, or she's not on the same level as Jennifer Hale, but she's kind of growing on me, actually. I quite like her, and I've had to do a bit of work to separate rider from shepherd. Does that become easier the further you get into the game? I'm assuming it does.
I mean, what we've got to think here is this is the start of a potentially a new trilogy. So when you started playing the first Mass Effect, you didn't necessarily have all these feelings of the characters you do by the end of it. So it's important to give them time, but you don't. I don't really think of the original trilogy now when I'm with where I am. I don't think Shepard would have been different, or Rex would have been different. It feels different, regardless of the fact that a lot of the aliens look similar. They are different characters, and like your crew are excellent, and the BioWare do a great job of, for me anyway, getting to know. You want to get to know them more, most of them anyway. And there's the Krogan Drac, who's awesome. He's a typical Krogan. He's a grumpy, arsehole, but he's great in the field, and he does give a shit. And then one of the Asaris, PB, she's really cool. And you'll get your favourites or whatnot, and you'll have these moments where you're alone with them, you can chat to them, and just quickly glancing over the romance thing, because it's fine. Does it if you want to go down that route?
Can I bone a Krogan, Chris? That's what I want to know.
You can. Oh yeah.
Oh good.
You can do anything that moves, pretty much. Excellent. As long as you talk to them quite a bit. But yeah, the options are there if you want to do it, but you don't have to. They're not. BioWare aren't the dialogue option doesn't open up in this big flashing heart, so that means you can go and try and pull them. It's very subtle. It's you can do it if you want, whatever. But you do start to care for these characters, and like many BioWare games, you build the characters up with skill points. You give them different powers and stuff. You can change their weaponry. You can go into any mission with any two other of the characters.
Yeah.
And there's 6 in total, I believe. They all have their different abilities and stuff.
Okay.
The one thing that I've noticed, and it kind of towards the end of the original trilogy, it got a lot more action orientated. There's a lot of kind of fighting in this, and there's sometimes battles where they go on for a while and there's no kind of quick save. So if you're right near the end and then you die, it's right back to the start, and it can be frustrating, but again, you've got to use your environment, use your abilities and your skills and your controls. There are a lot of kind of good combat things in this, like the kind of evade. You can dash, move out of the way. You can jump, and it kind of uses your jetpack, and you can kind of hover in midair. So you've got to kind of use barricades and rocks and whatever to hide behind, and and all that. So there's a lot more kind of skill involved. Sorry.
What I've played of it so far, I think the combat is vastly different from previous games. Mobility is a big factor now. As you say, there's the dash, the sort of evade, which is really cool. I mean, the character that I'm playing with at the moment, I've gone as a Vanguard. Although it wasn't called a Vanguard when I chose it, but it seems that I've gone as Vanguard, and ironically that was my main character in the trilogy, so it seems to be a class that I gravitate towards naturally. And with the Vanguard, you've got that dash that you kind of go in, you zoom to your target and give them a really heavy melee, and then you can either finish them off with a shot or melee them again. And once or twice I've used that, and I've gone into a group of enemies and thought, oh shit, shouldn't really be here. And that evade with the jump is glorious, quite frankly. It gives you just enough time to get out of trouble and back into cover again. Yeah.
I mean, as you say, there are a lot. It's a lot different this time around, and there are a lot of different kind of manoeuvres, and the way you can use your team as well. There's not a lot of commands, but you've got the D-pad. You literally tap the left, that'll send one of your teammates to the left, and then to the right will send the other one. Press up, and they both go to the point that you're aiming at. So you've got the control of your team on the D-pad, very kind of easy and effective. You've got your weapons, you've got all your kind of your additional abilities that you can use, like you can change the type of bullet in your gun and stuff like that. So there's a hell of a lot to learn, and not just in the combat but just in general. I mean, there's the amount of kind of different things. You've got your multiplayer, which is completely separate, but then you've got the kind of strike teams, which are kind of like the missions in like Metal Gear 5, where you send off like a group of people to a mission in game, and then like 2 hours later they'll either complete it or they'll fail.
Sure.
But it adds you like an extra point. You can do that, or you can go and do these missions with a friend. So there's that, and then there's all the R&D you can do. You can research tons of equipment, tons of armor, weapons, and then get them developed. One of the tools you've got when you're traveling around the planets, and there's a hell of a lot of planets as well, like it's nuts the amount of places you can go to, and like Mass Effect, you can't go visit every planet, but you can visit a lot, but then you scan a lot for minerals and stuff. But yeah, going back to when you're just kind of roaming around on these planets in your Nomad, which is a massive improvement from Mass Effect's
Mako,
and that it controls really well. It's got an all-terrain mode where you just tap up on the L1 on the controller, and it turns it into a 6-wheel drive, so it'll get up like steeper.
Oh, okay. So it's not floaty anymore.
No, it's very grounded, and it feels good to control. It's like the Warthog. It feels very much like the Warthog to control, which is always good. But yeah, the scanner you've got as well. You press down on the D-pad, and it'll bring up a scanner, and there's certain items in the world that can be scanned, and depending on what kind of make of equipment it is, it will distribute research points to Milky Way equipment, Remnant equipment, or Ket equipment, and each one of them kind of has certain buffs and stuff. So there's a lot of thought gone into it, and it is a very ambitious game, and a lot of the time it does pull it off, and it sucks you in.
How long is it, do you think, Chris?
Oh, a lot, very, very long. I think I can't think how I'm on. God knows how many hours, but I'm on like completion about 40%, and that's about 24 hours.
Okay, so we're looking at quite a lengthy.
Yeah.
If you want to do all the side missions and
because that'll improve the percentage.
Okay.
Yeah, so all the side missions improve to the overall, completion. So I'm assuming that once you've done the story, it won't reach 100%. You'll have all the other stuff to do. Sure. But it'll be interesting to see whether you can go back and.
I would hope you could. You could in previous games go back and do the other stuff. One thing I think is worth mentioning as well is that a lot of the criticism levied at 2 and 3 was that a lot of the RPG elements had been scaled back. I see, from the limited time that I've spent with it, there's a lot more stuff to tinker with, isn't there? There's a lot more ways to spend your skill points once you level up. There's a lot more, mods that you can add into your gun, and you can craft mods by the looks of it. I don't know if that's correct.
You do all sorts, You
can craft equipment and all sorts. So there's a lot more of the RPG stuff that was stripped out from the first game looks to be back in. Would that be fair to say?
Oh yeah, I mean, yes, it is an action game, but yes, and it's also an RPG, and then at times it's an RTS. It feels like a strategy game at times because you've got you earn these cryo points, and then you'll use them to wake up, because obviously you've travelled to this galaxy with 20,000 humans in stasis as well. You can start to wake them up and put them into like research, military, or trade, and by doing so that'll give you kind of perks in those areas. So it might mean when you look for items, there might be kind of better items when you open a container and stuff like that, or it might give you better strength when going out fighting and stuff like that. So there's a hell of a lot to it, and it's a massive game. It's got so much. You've got so much there for you to kind of play with, and the missions you've got the main story missions, which are the priority ops they're called, and then there's all the side missions which will include just like random encounters on planets or on Nexus. There's the missions which you can kind of help out your crew members, so they might need something like PB. She's got a mission where you go to the Nexus and you help her to build this item for you and stuff like that. So there's so much to do.
So if you're a fan, it's going to keep you busy for a while.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are a few frame rate issues. There are the supposed animation issues. And I'm not saying there aren't these animation issues, but if that's all that people are going to focus on, then it's unfair.
They're going to miss
because
out.
They're going to miss this incredibly epic, well-designed game. And visually, the backdrops are ridiculous. The way the sun comes off the kind of snowy dunes on certain planets, and the way the water reflects, and there's like jungles. There's so many different biomes. It's unreal.
Oh, good.
And it's just good. It's just a gorgeous game, So I think people need to give it a go.
Great.
So,
I can't wait to get stuck more into it. And
well, enjoying it. And if you want to read the review, head over to guysthegeek.com to do so. There's going to be a tips piece by Nick as well. So
yep, I'm working on that at the moment.
You're going to need that. So yeah, thank you for listening.
Thanks very much.